Hey everybody, it is Noah, and today was a day I have been waiting for so long. So, if you guys watch the channel, you know that recently I've really enjoyed playing with large language models, and you probably don't know this, but I have been waiting to hear when Nvidia's Project DGX is going to be announced. So today I got the email, you can now reserve it, and so I was super excited about this. So, it was previously called Project DGX. It's now called the DGX Spark. So what it is it's this little tiny computer over here on the desktop. And that is what I'm excited about. Tiny form factor, but supposed to be very powerful. Now, why do I want this? If you watch the channel, you know that I really like Mistral Small. But Mistral Small is pretty slow on my computer because I only have an 8GB graphics card. So I'll show you an example here of what is the largest Falcon in the world. So I'll ask this question, which should be pretty easy for it to answer. And you can see it's taking a little bit to actually come up with it. And the reason is because not all of this model actually fits into the VRAM of my graphics card. It has to have it shared across other aspects of the computer. And so it's generally pretty slow. As you can see here where it's responding, it's still also pretty slow, right? So man, I just don't even, I don't have the patience for this. I'm not I'm not the kind of person who can work with this. Like this I love this model. It gives me awesome results, but this speed on my compute equipment right now on my computer, it's just too slow. So I really want something that can run this. And I know if you are one of those more tech savvy people, you're probably like, oh, well, that'll run on a 4090 or a 5090, especially if you quantize it. Yeah. That's all true, right? So like you can run a smaller quant of Mistral Small, and I could probably get it to fit on this graphics card if I went small enough. So I started thinking about it and looking into it. And so I'm running Mistral Small Latest right now. So Mistral Small Latest is about 14 gigs. And as I mentioned, my graphics card is only 8 gigs. So if I look through here, there's not even a quant small enough to fit on my 8 gig graphics card. The closest one would be this one here of Q3 small, and I'm just not willing to do that. I don't want to do that. So that's the main thing that made me want to get a better graphics card, is I'd really like to be able to run some of these models that are still considered, in my mind, small to medium-sized models, but at much better speeds. So I started looking around, and my buddy told me about this Project DGX back when it came out. So let's take a look real quick at what some of the specifications are on this little machine. Now, I will say that I did reserve one. I did not reserve the actual Nvidia one. I ended up reserving the Asus one, and the reason is because of the price. The Nvidia one was $4,000, or I guess it was $3,999, as compared to the Asus machine was $2,999. So you guys know me. You know I don't like spending a lot of money, so it would be a substantial investment for me either way. And when I was looking at some of the information that's available, with what's available right now, it looks like they're very similar machines. I don't know all the details yet because not all the details are available. But let's check out what it says about the DGX Spark here. So as we're looking through this, you can see it says it delivers 1,000 AI tops of AI performance, and it's got 128 gigabytes of memory. So this was intriguing to me, but what really got my attention was this idea of down here where it says that you can run AI models up to 200 billion parameters locally. Now, we were just talking about running a 24 billion parameter model locally, and it's slow on my computer. So when you think about 200 billion, that opens up a lot of different models. That opens up potentially, I'm going to say potentially because there's an asterisk here and we're going to come back to it in a minute, okay? So it opens up the potential of running something like Llama 3.3. This is a 70 billion parameter model, right? So that in theory should fit well within this 200 billion parameter claim that they have here. So we're going to come back to that here in a second, but let's look at some of the specs that it has. It's got their new, or at least I'm assuming this is new, GB10 super chip. And so here's one of the caveats, right? So they're like, oh, we have this 1,000 AI tops of AI performance. And then we see here it's at FP4 precision. Okay, so if you're not totally into like these LLMs and everything, let me show you a little bit about what that might mean, okay? So here you can see FP16. This is I'm going to use like normal people language, or at least the way I think about it. When I see FP16, that to me is like the full force model. That is the full model in itself, all the good stuff. And then as you start quantizing it, it starts to get smaller and smaller. And that is good in terms of VRAM space, but it impacts things like how well the model can perform. Now, there are some other great videos on YouTube about quantization, and if I remember, which hopefully I will, Noah, in editing, you should remember to go ahead and include the link down in the description. And I'm hoping that by me saying this on video to you guys, I'm gonna remember to do that. But I found a great video the other day, and it is all about quants, and it explains it in very, in my opinion, normal people language. So I'm gonna try and remember to include that video in the description because it was very helpful to me. But long story short, as we go through here, if I'm paying that much money for something, I don't necessarily want to be running like a Q2 or a Q4 model. I would like to be running closer to the full model. And this is just my personal opinion. So then that's what really grabbed my attention here. So they're like up to 1,000 AI tops at FP4. And so, you know, when I look at this, FP16 is kind of like the full bore model. Q4 is pretty small comparably, right? So let's look at what's in between. We have 5s, we have 6s, we have 8s. So like there's other options here that are in between. And so I don't know. This isn't misleading in any way because they're very open about the fact that it's 1,000 AI tops at FP4. But the FP4 thing is worth paying attention to. Now, next, I want to get into this idea of the coherent unified memory. And so as I'm talking about this, something I want you to keep in mind is like, I am definitely what I would call like a casual user of LLMs, maybe an advanced casual user. So any of the things that I'm talking about here, you should verify them and make sure that they're 100% accurate. I'm going off the best of my knowledge at the time. So if I'm incorrect about something, please feel free to tell me in the comments. It doesn't bother me at all. It just helps me learn things better and help explain them better. So that said, let's get into this unified memory here, right? So I'm not going to actually get into the system itself that much, but I do want to point out this 128 gigs. Now, you may be thinking, well, Noah, you said you only have 8 gigabytes of VRAM. That is true. On my current computer, I do only have an 8 gigabyte dedicated graphics card. But my understanding is that with the architecture of this system, it has shared, I'm going to call it RAM. They call it unified system memory. So here they have unified system memory, and you can think about this, at least the way I think about this is conceptually similar to how the new Macs work, where I think they share memory between the GPU and the CPU. And I think that this is the same architecture that they're using here. I'm sure one of you guys watching this video knows a lot more than me. If I'm wrong about that, please tell me in the comments. So 128 gigs. So that sounds like a lot compared to 8. And they're saying this is where we can use up to 200 billion parameters. That's intriguing, right? Like that's really intriguing. If you look at these, there's a reason why they're mentioning 200 billion here, and then when you're looking at Connect, they're talking about up to 405 billion, right? So there's a big Llama model, if I remember right. I think it might be 3.1. That's like 405 billion parameters. So I'm sure that, or I should say, I'm pretty confident that's why they're mentioning this for networking them together is for marketing purposes. Same with 200 billion. That just seems like a lot. But here's the thing, okay? 128 gigabytes of memory. Now let's go back to this Llama 3.3 that I mentioned before, right? This is the new state-of-the-art 70 billion parameter model. It's 70 billion. That's a lot less than the 200 billion that they're talking about on their page, right? But check this out, okay? What happens if we go to tags? And first of all, I want to point out that the default one that you can download here for Llama 3.3, this is a Q4 quant, okay? So notice that there. What if you want to run the actual like full FP16? That is 141 gigabytes. 141. Wait a minute, how many did our Nvidia machine have? Only 128. So what does that mean practically speaking? That means if you wanted to run the full FP16 70 billion parameter Llama 3.3, it's not going to fit within 128 gigs because it itself is 141 gigs, right? So I'm not 100% sure how that works in a system like that because I don't have a system like this. I am guessing that some of it gets passed to the CPU or something like that. I don't know. All I know is as I started looking into this, I was honestly a little bit disappointed because it's telling us here that we can run up to 200 billion parameters. But when I look at this 70B, I mean, yeah, we can definitely run the Q4, right? The Q4 is only 43, only 43 gigabytes. Let's see, can we even run the Q8? Yeah, we could run the Q8 here. So that's 75 gigabytes. I would imagine that that's probably going to fit within that 128 gigs without too much issue. So I just wanted to mention this because these are things that I think you should think about if you're considering buying one of these machines. They're things that I'm definitely thinking about. Like I said, I've reserved it. At this point, I do think I'm going to buy it, but we'll see over the next few weeks as more information comes out about these different machines, what they can do. So I'll just scroll down a little bit so you can see some of the pictures of the machine. It's, in my opinion, it's kind of an elegant little desktop. I think it looks nice with the box and everything. So they have more information here. If you guys are interested in it, I'm going to drop well, I'm assuming you're interested in it because, you know, you're watching this video. So I'm going to include a link down in the description where you can find out about the actual machine itself and some of the things that, like all of its specifications and all that. Now, I do want to mention the operating system because this was one of the first things that I noticed when I was going through here, right? So this is kind of its own little machine, and look, it's got a 20-core ARM processor. So when I saw that it had an ARM processor, the first thing that came to mind for me was, oh man, I don't even know if that can run Windows or anything. Like, can it run Linux? I'm not a big Linux user. I haven't used Linux really much at all. So I didn't know if Linux could work on ARM. So when I got down here to the OS, it says that they have their own OS that they've developed. And when I did some web searching, I found out that it's actually based on Linux. So I was actually kind of excited about that because a lot of LLM stuff has support for Linux-based operating systems. So that was kind of exciting to me. So they have all sorts of information here. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these things because honestly, I don't really like videos that do that. What about the Asus machine, right? I mentioned that when I went to reserve this today, there was the opportunity to reserve the DGX Spark here, but there was also an opportunity to reserve the Asus machine, and they were different prices. Well, when I started going to the searching for information about the Asus machine, I actually couldn't find anything on the Asus website at the time that I searched for it. So the only thing I could really find was actually this piece by Tom's Hardware. And here they had a picture of the machine, which in shape and form factor looks very, very similar to the other, but it doesn't really have much more information than what I saw on the Nvidia site. So most of the information here is very, very, very similar to the Nvidia. So you can see it's got the 20-core ARM design, and it talks about the same cores as I saw on the other one, if I'm recalling correctly. I just want to make sure of that because the number 20 caught my attention here. Yeah, 10 Cortex on both. So it looks like this is very, very similar between both of them, the Blackwell GPU, blah, blah, blah. And so as I was skimming through, I noticed that it didn't really have very much information. And so I tried to find the information on the Asus site itself. I couldn't find anything. And then as I was reading this article, I noticed they had the same issue, right? Without a product page or additional renders, we don't know for sure what kind of connectivity it'll have. So I did say that the price that I saw for it when I reserved it was $2,999 for the Asus product. As compared to the Nvidia product, the price was $3,999. That said, I do not know what the spec difference is between those two that warrants a $1,000 price difference. So I guess we will wait and see. So when I made my reservation, not saying it's going to be the same for you guys, but when I made my reservation, it basically was giving me the opportunity to buy it once it becomes available. I think they said it gives me about 4 days to purchase it if I choose to purchase it once inventory is available. Now, will inventory be available? When will inventory be available? Two wonderful questions. So if you are around the world of LLMs, you may have seen that like the Nvidia 5090 is out, right? This is I think it's a 32 gigabyte VRAM chip, and it's their leading VRAM chip right now for consumer hardware and gaming and things like that. But you can't find one. At least I haven't been able to find one. Every time I go look for one, and number one, I see the price tag and I just like, no, I'm not going to spend $3,000 or $3,500 on one component of a PC that's going to require me to upgrade other components of my PC. That just seemed like a very steep curve. And then the second piece is I just can't find it in stock. I haven't been able to see it in stock anywhere. And so the question that I've seen people talking about on the internet already in regards to the DGX Spark or Project Digits, whatever you'd like to call it at this point, you should probably call it Spark at this point since they changed the name. But the question that people have been asking is like, will it even actually be available? And will it even still be relevant when it's available? And I think these are great questions. I don't know. The rumors that I've seen so far say that it's going to be available in May. I think that's what the Tom's Hardware site said as well. Here's the Tom Hardware site. Yeah, so they say it's supposed to hit the market in May. So will it hit the market in May? We'll see. How many will hit the market in May? We'll see. I am excited about it regardless, and I am excited about hearing your guys' thoughts. If you have thoughts about this machine, particularly if you are more experienced on like these different hardware aspects and how it interacts with LLMs, please, please, please leave your thoughts down in the comments. I would love to know what you guys are thinking about this. So far, from what I've seen on Reddit, people are either super excited because it's an opportunity to get a lot of unified memory available for large language models, and for consumers like me, where like I don't need to be running a 405 billion parameter model. That's really not my goal. I honestly, for me, I'd really love to be able to run Mistral Small super fast. And as these models get better and better and better, I would love to be able to run other models that are similar size, 20, 30, 40, 50 billion parameters, you know, kind of like that medium size where we can still hopefully get really, 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 really great results on a lot of different tasks. I would love to be able to run that locally and quickly without having to wait considerable amount of time because it just takes up too much VRAM. So that's where I'm coming at this from. I am just hoping it's a really, really nice consumer grade piece of equipment that will let me do some fine tuning. It'll let me merge models. I really just want to be able to do things that my current GPU doesn't allow me to do without having to buy a $3,000 GPU that still only has 32 gigabytes of VRAM. So that's the position I'm coming from this from, and that's why I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to learning more. Now, I do want to tell you guys a bit about my experience today when I hit this Reserve Now button, because I think you'll find it amusing and perhaps maybe a little sad. So I was actually on my email when I got the email from Nvidia, and it said something like project digits now available, and I was like, yes, and I instantly hit go to the webpage, and then I was like, Reserve Now, and I go through and I took some screenshots along the way. Let me show you what I saw. So this is the first one that I saw, and so as soon as I clicked reserve, it's like, you are now in line, and I was like, yes, only 334 people ahead of me. And I was kind of dumbfounded that there were that many people ahead of me, because as soon as I got the email, I was clicking and I was on my way in, because like I said, I've been excited about this thing for a while. So I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to get this computer. And a few minutes go by, and then I see this. And it says, it is now your turn. And I was so excited. It let me go create my account, and I get all logged in, and I say, no, please don't send me any spam. And then the website crashed. I wasn't able to get into the actual Nvidia store. And so I was talking with some of my friends, and I was like, what is going on? Were you able to get one? And they're like, oh yeah, I got one, no problem. I reserved mine, yada, yada, yada. And so I kept refreshing. I tried going to like the Nvidia store a different way, and I get into the Nvidia site, but I couldn't get into the Nvidia store. And I was using Chrome at the time. And so somebody mentioned to me like, hey, try a VPN. And I was like, well, I don't have a VPN easily like and quickly to be hooked up. So I switched from Chrome to Firefox. And when I used Firefox, I got in right away. I did have to go wait in line again, but I still got through. And when it actually pushed me past this point, I was able to actually go in and reserve it. It gave me 3 choices. I could reserve either one of the DGX Sparks from Nvidia. I think there was an option to reserve 2 of the DGX Sparks from Nvidia, and then there was a third option to get the Asus machine, and like I mentioned, the Asus machine was $1,000 cheaper, so I went ahead and reserved that. So I'll keep you guys up to date on what happens with this. For those of you who are like me and really like local AI and like just experimenting with local AI and seeing how it can help us, and like I definitely have my use cases for private AI as compared to things that I'm willing for certain providers to use as training data. Like anything that's around my work specifically, like my academic work, I really like to keep that on private AI when I can until I'm ready to release it to the world and publish it. So I am really excited about the potential to be able to run bigger, stronger models locally on my machine. So I will keep you guys updated on this. I will try and remember to let you know, well, number one, if it does actually become available in May. Personally, I'm a little bit skeptical based on how 5090 availability is, but if it is actually available in May, I will keep you guys updated when it arrives. We'll do a whole bunch of testing. I'm really hoping it does show up. Like, I'm really hoping it does become available and I can get one, because if so, $3,000 is a lot of money. But for those of us who use AI for quite a bit, it doesn't matter if it's for personal stuff or academic stuff or professional stuff, whatever. For those of us who use AI and we don't need a supercomputer, we just need something like mildly more powerful than what a normal GPU is. This might be a really good option, because think about it. How much is it to build, like if you were to get a reasonably high-end Mac computer, how much is that? That's easily like between $2,500 and $5,000. Same thing with a PC. PCs tend to be a little bit cheaper, but as soon as you start mentioning AI and you're going to need those graphics cards with the VRAM, like let's just take a look real quick, okay? So I'm just going to go to newegg.com real quickly, and we're just going to see how much an RTX 5090 is. Okay, so like if you were trying to run AI models on your computer locally, this is probably the card that you would want if you want to run a bigger model. But look, here it is, 32 gigabytes of VRAM, $3,300. So if we look down, this one's a little bit cheaper, but it's still $2,700. For an extra 150 bucks, you could get this Asus machine that we're looking at. That's the equivalent of the DGX Spark, or it's some variant of the DGX Spark, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's right there with the DGX Spark. So that was $29.99. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking in my mind, I can either, and this is not a perfect parallel, so please don't interpret it as that. But in my mind, conceptually, I can either get 32 gigs of VRAM from a card like this 5090 that's almost $3,000, or I can get access to 128 gigs of unified memory for 150 bucks more, 140 bucks more, whatever it is. To me, that's a no-brainer, right? Like, I think that 128 gigs of unified memory is going to be much more useful for the type of thing that I want to do for the money than this 5090 card. But ultimately, we don't know. We don't know, right? These things aren't out in the wild yet in public hands. So that said, remember I was saying that the 5090 isn't really available. So like we're just looking here on Newegg. So of course there's other websites, but look, out of stock, 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 out of stock. And so that's why I'm a little bit skeptical that this computer will actually, the Asus computer or the Nvidia version of it, the Nvidia DGX Spark, I'm a little bit skeptical it'll actually be available in May, but man, I really hope so. I really hope so. So that said, I am going to stop my rambling here. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I'm going to include links in the description to both the specs about this machine as well as the video on quants that I found to be really interesting and helpful for my understanding of quants. That said, please don't interpret this video as me endorsing this machine or saying like this machine is so great. Again, I will remind you, I have simply reserved this machine. I have not bought it yet. It's not available. I have absolutely no use with it yet. I am just super excited to have the potential to get it, and I really hope it actually is available in May. So that said, if this is interesting to you guys, please like and subscribe to help support the channel. For the meta-analysis friends out there, I promise you I am working on this really long meta-analysis video. I will have it out to you guys in the next few weeks. Please hold tight. I know you're probably like, oh, AI. Yes, I do love AI, and I'm having so much fun with AI, but I have not forgotten about you. I'm making a really nice and comprehensive meta-analysis video that I think will really make a lot of you happy once I am done with it. I really just need to finish it, but it's so long. It's such a long video. Really, it's just taking a lot of effort. So that said, have an absolutely wonderful afternoon or evening or morning, whatever time it is when you're watching this. Have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video.